कालो व कारणम राज्ञम राजा व काल कारणम इति ते संशयो मुंभूत राजा कालस्य कारणम.
The origin of ancient Indian astronomy is closely linked with the growth of agrarian society of the early Vedic period. The Vedas indicate the knowledge of lunisolar calendar, intercalary month, and the division of the zodiac into 28 nakshatras. Later, it was Mayasura'S Surya Siddhanta which had revolutionized Indian astronomy by introducing astronomical calculations based on spherical trigonometry and ushered in a new era of Siddhantic astronomy. According to Surya Siddhanta, Mayasura observed a rare conjunction of the Sun, Moon and all planets except their nodes and apsides were in conjunction in Aries, Mesha on new moon day of Chaitra month at the end of the 28th Krita Yuga. Software simulations using the JPL Horizons ephemeris system established that such conjunction on Chaitra Shukla Pratipada occurred only once in the last 16,000 years. That is, on 22nd February 6778 BCE. Evidently, Mayasura had personally observed this conjunction in 6778 BCE and referred to this conjunction as an epoch for his Surya Siddhanta. In the 57th verse of chapter 1, Meshado means that Sun was in the first degree of Aries and Madhyagataha means Sun was in the middle of this conjunction of planets. The simulation shows that Venus, Saturn and Moon were located east of the Sun, whereas Mercury, Mars and Jupiter were located west of the Sun. The Sun was in the first degree of Aries and in the middle of this 26-degree conjunction of all planets. The conjunction perfectly matches with the description given in the Surya Siddhanta. This rare conjunction occurred only once in the last 16,000 years. This establishes that Mayasura wrote Surya Siddhanta in 6778 BCE and the calendar of Surya Siddhanta completes 8,800 years in the year 2022. Prior to 6777 BCE, a Yuga calendar of 5 years and a Chatur Yuga calendar of 20 years were in vogue. Ancient Indian astronomers revised the time span of a Chatur Yuga from 20 years to 4800 years and established a Yuga cycle of 1200 years. Subsequently, the Chatur Yuga cycle was enlarged from 4800 years to 12,000 years with the differential duration of yugas. Before Mahabharata era, the time span of a yuga increased from 1200 years to 4,32,000 years, and that of a Chatur Yuga cycle increased from 12,000 years to 43,20,000 years, with an objective to facilitate accurate calendric and astronomical calculations in whole numbers. It is pertinent to understand the evolutional history of the scheme of nakshatras in Indian astronomy. During the Vedic era, the scheme of 28 nakshatras starting from Mrigashira was introduced around 11,200 BCE. At that time, winter solstice occurred at Mrigashira. When winter solstice shifted to Rohini in 10,200 BCE and Kritika in 9,200 BCE due to precession of equinoxes, the order of nakshatras was also updated. The list of nakshatras starting from Kritika in Atharva Veda, which indicates that the Nakshatra Sukta was written when winter solstice had shifted to Kritika, when winter solstice again shifted to Ashwini around 7,322 BCE. Abhijit was finally excluded and the list of 27 nakshatras was formally introduced starting from Ashwini. This major change in the scheme of nakshatras has been considered as the beginning of the 7th Manvantara. Thus, the first Krita Yuga of the 7th Manvantara commenced in 7322 BCE. Bhagavad Puran and Mahabharata's Vanaparva mention that when the first Krita Yuga commenced, a conjunction of Sun, Moon and Jupiter took place in Pushya Nakshatra on the day of vernal equinox and new moon, that is 24th May 7321 BCE. Using computer simulation of nakshatra latitudinal data by varying ecliptic obliquity, ecliptic node location and ecliptic sync together with proper motion, Sri Anil Narayanan demonstrated that a match for the Surya Siddhanta latitudinal data was obtained in the time frame 7300 BCE. Therefore, Mayasura was the real father of trigonometry who lived much prior to Greek astronomer Hipparchus. Mayasura's Surya Siddhanta was the first stream of knowledge which formulated the concept of 7-day week starting from the epochal day of Surya Siddhanta, that is 22nd February 6778 BCE, Sunday. This tradition of 7-day week was adopted by the entire world subsequently. This fact indicates that a reform in the modern Gregorian calendar is required since the epochal day of Surya Siddhanta, 22nd February 6778 BCE, and the epochal day of the Shakanta era, that is 1st April 78 CE, have been erroneously calculated as Wednesdays in the Julian calendar. It would also be logical to replace the concept of Julian day with the Surya Siddhanta day, considering the day 0 of year 0, starting from 22nd February 6778 BCE. The belief of Western scholars that the ancient Babylonians were the first to introduce the Sabbath, that is Saturday, as holiday, and the Hebrew calendar of Jews adopted it from them, is not founded on facts. It was the ancient Indians who introduced the concept of 7-day week to the world. All cycles of 60 years or 12 years in the world follow the epoch of the Surya Siddhanta cycle of 60 years, that is 6777 BCE. Abul Fazl mentions that an ancient Turkish era calendar, also known as Eiguri, was based on a 12-year cycle. Ancient China also used the 60-year cycle, and the first year of the current Chinese cycle was 1984 CE. The Chinese cycle of 60 years and the Turkish cycle of 12 years are based on the Indian epoch of 6777 BCE. Under influence of Surya Siddhanta, Brahma Siddhanta introduced the cycles of 12 years and 60 years starting from 6773 BCE. Thus, 6773 BCE was the first year in Brahma Siddhanta's 60-year cycle, whereas 6777 BCE was the first year in Surya Siddhanta's 60-year cycle. Presently, we are following the Brahma Siddhanta's 60-year cycle, and 1987 was the first year. Tibetans also followed the 60-year cycle of Brahma Siddhanta. Abul Fazl refers to an astrological era of creation that reckoned when all planets were in conjunction in Aries. The Arab astronomer Abu Mashar, in his book Kitab al-Qiranat, says that the world was created when the Sun, Moon and all the 5 planets gathered at the first degree of Aries. He proposed cycles of events choosing the Yuga cycle of 1,80,000 years, similar to Mayasura'S Surya Siddhanta. Al-Biruni states that Abu Mashar derived his conclusions from Indian sources. Abul Fazl mentions that 1,84,696 years have elapsed, starting from the epoch of astrological era of creation. Persian astronomers might have counted roughly 3000 years from the epoch of the conjunction in Aries to the epoch of deluge in 3708 BCE. According to Varahamihira, a yuga of Mayasura'S Surya Siddhanta had a duration of 1,80,000 years. It appears that astronomers multiplied 3000 years by 60 and assumed that 1,80,000 astronomical years had elapsed by the time of deluge in 3708 BCE. If 3000 civil years are added to the epoch of the deluge, the Persian epoch of the conjunction in Aries is exactly the conjunction of 6778 BCE recorded in Surya Siddhanta. Thema Mundi. The earliest horoscope in Greek tradition was prepared during the 7th millennium BCE, and it has Cancer in the ascendant, which indicates the vernal equinox at Cancer. Greek scholars Plato and Cicero also mentioned that the great year began at the conjunction of the Sun, Moon and all planets. It indicates that Greek astrology was also influenced by Mayasura'S Surya Siddhanta. Accordingly, the epoch of Surya Siddhanta, that is 6778 BCE, became an astrological epoch of the creation of the world in Persian and Greek astrology. Mithraism of West evolved when the Surya Siddhanta was theologically transformed into the worshipping of Mithra, the sun god. Winter solstice became the birthday of Mithra because the new year in the Surya Siddhanta used to commence at winter solstice in the 7th millennium BCE. Certain astronomical observations recorded in post-Surya Siddhanta literature can also be scientifically dated. The historical events of Ramayana occurred around 5677 to 5577 BCE in the last century of the Treta Yuga. Yuddha Kanda of Ramayana indicates the position of a comet in Mula Nakshatra when the Vanara Sena was ready to march towards Lanka. Ramayana describes that a comet touched the root of Mula Nakshatra, which was oppressed by a planet almost at the same time. Venus was in the Mula constellation around 22nd August to 3rd September 5635 BCE, and the Halley's comet had also entered Mula Nakshatra on 23rd August 5635 BCE. Thereafter, it gradually faded away. Since Ravana was born in Mula Nakshatra, the appearance of Halley's comet in Mula Nakshatra in 5635 BCE has been assumed as an astrological indication of the destruction of Rakshasas. This way, the date of Rama-Ravana Yuddha can be absolutely fixed in 5635 BCE. The Dwapara Yuga of 2400 years commenced in 5577 BCE and ended in 3176 BCE, and the Mahabharata war took place in 3162 BCE. The available text of Surya Siddhanta was written by Latadeva in 3101 BCE based on Mayasura'S Surya Siddhanta of 6778 BCE. Varahamihira's Pancha Siddhantika gives a summary of Mayasura'S Surya Siddhanta. The main difference between these two Siddhantas is that Mayasura referred to a yuga of 1,80,000 years of Asura tradition, whereas Latadeva referred to a yuga of 4,32,000 years of Deva tradition. Interestingly, Latadeva observed a rough conjunction of all planets on Chaitra Shukla Pratipada, that is 18th February 3101 BCE, and compiled the text of Surya Siddhanta. The Surya Siddhanta indicates that the value of the Earth's obliquity to be 24 degrees. The obliquity of Earth's axis was 24 degrees prior to 2900 BCE. Presently, the obliquity is around 23.4 degrees. Surya Siddhanta measured the latitude of Ujjain to be 24 degrees and established the latitude of Ujjain as prime meridian in 6778 BCE. Because Ujjain is geographically located at the point where the zero meridian of longitude and the Tropic of Cancer intersect. According to Latadeva, there were two pole stars in 3101 BCE. Thuban is part of Draco constellation and it was the North Pole star around 3900 to 1800 BCE. Alpha Eridani or Achernar was the South Pole star around 3400 to 2000 BCE. Around 3400 BCE, Achernar's declination was 82 degrees 40 minutes, placing it within 7.5 degrees of the South Celestial Pole. Puranas give the description of the stars of Shishumara, that is, Draco constellation, and refer to the position of the North Pole star in the tail of Draco constellation. It is well known that Vyasa of Mahabharata era compiled Puranas in the 32nd century BCE. Surya, Paitamaha, Vashishtha, Romaka and Paulisha Siddhantas discussed by Varahamihira in the Pancha Siddhantika are Indian Siddhantas. Romaka Siddhanta's yuga of 2850 years comprised 1050 Adhimasas and 16,547 Tithi Pralayas. Western Indologists speculated that 2850-year cycle of Romaka Siddhanta has 10,40,953 days, which implies a year of 365 days, 5 hours, 55 minutes, 22 seconds, similar to the calculations made by Hipparchus and Ptolemy. They also concocted a false theory that the Romaka Siddhanta is based on the tropical system of Greece and Byzantine Rome. Romaka Siddhanta was founded in India much before the evolution of Hellenistic astronomy and the foundation of Rome. It is originally a lunisolar calendar, and the yuga of 2850 years is based on Shatapatha Brahman's Yagyavalkya cycle of 95 years. The speculation of the foreign origin of Romaka Siddhanta is falsely founded. The Metonic cycle of 19 years is undoubtedly derived from the sub-cycle of 95 years of Romaka Siddhanta. Varahamihira refers to a commentary on Romaka Siddhanta written by Latadeva around 3101 BCE. Paulisha Siddhanta also evolved before the Mahabharata era because Latadeva wrote a commentary on the Paulisha Siddhanta around 3101 BCE. Paulisha and Surya Siddhantas both give the length of the sidereal year as equal to 365.25875 days. Apparently, Paulisha Siddhanta also followed the lunisolar calendar of Chaitra Shukladi and the Indian cycle of 43,20,000 years. Western scholars said that Paulisha Siddhanta follows Yavana Jataka, but chronologically, Latadeva's commentary on Paulisha Siddhanta is older than Yavana Jataka. Therefore, Paulisha and Romaka Siddhantas existed in India much before the evolution of Hellenistic astronomy. Prior to the commencement of Siddhantic astronomy in 6778 BCE, Vedas and Brahmanas indicate the beginning of Samvatsara in Sharad Ritu. Therefore, the reference of Vishuvat in Vedic literature must be interpreted as the autumnal equinox. The Ashwini hymns of the 7th Mandala, compiled by Vasishtha Maitra Varuni, indicate that the Sharad Ritu calendar of Vedic era had commenced when the autumnal equinox occurred in Ashwini Nakshatra around 13,500 BCE. It has been misinterpreted by many scholars that Vedanga Jyotisha fixes winter solstice at the beginning of Shravishta Nakshatra and summer solstice at the middle of Ashlesha Nakshatra. This misinterpretation leads to a date around 1400 BCE. The second verse of Rig Veda Jyotisha indicates that Shuchi had compiled the Jyotisha of Lagadha Muni. Evidently, Lagadha was not the real author of the available text of Rig Veda Jyotisha. The available Vedanga Jyotisha might have been recompiled around 3500 BCE because it refers to Tapas month of Shishira season as the beginning of New Year. The Mahabharata written in the 32nd century BCE clearly indicates the knowledge of Vedanga Jyotisha. Shuchi's statement, Tad Adi Yugam Syad, tells us that the astronomical references to Shravishta and Ashlesha Nakshatras are actually related to the Adi Yuga in the past and not observed during his lifetime. In fact, Lagadha Muni might have referred to autumnal equinox at the beginning of Shravishta Nakshatra and vernal equinox at the middle of Ashlesha Nakshatra, which is dated around 8300 BCE. In Paitamaha Siddhanta of Vedanga Jyotish calendar, a Saptarshi cycle of 2700 years was introduced around 6777 BCE, and first 100 years from 6777 to 6677 BCE were hypothetically assigned to Ashwini Nakshatra. Every subcycle of 100 years was linked to one nakshatra in order to easily remember the number of 100 years cycles elapsed. Accordingly, Saptarshis were in Magha Nakshatra around 3177 to 3077 BCE when Mahabharata war took place in 3162 BCE and Yudhishthira ascended the throne. Traditionally, ancient Kashmir followed this Saptarshi calendar. When the Kashmiri astronomers introduced the Chaitra Shukladi calendar in place of Magha Shukladi calendar, they had to reset the epoch of Saptarshi calendar in 3076 BCE, which came to be known as Laukika Samvat. Thus, Indian civilization has a tradition of 6,700 years of pre-Siddhantic astronomy from 13,500 BCE to 6,778 BCE and the tradition of 8,800 years of Siddhantic astronomy from 6,778 BCE to till date. Ancient Indians taught the basics of astronomy, trigonometry, spherical trigonometry and calculus to the world and attained the status of Vishwaguru for thousands of years in the past. Let's reclaim our glorious scientific heritage and inspire our scientists to work together with pride and passion so that the glory of our nation could be reawakened in the world. Let us be proud of being the descendants of the greatest and the oldest continuous civilization which laid the strong scientific foundations in ancient times that perhaps led the world in the direction of modern advanced sciences.